Hello and welcome to this presentation on using the new GEC Substitution Form. This presentation is going to show you the differences between the new form and the old form that you were using previously. The new form mirrors more what we anticipate the new online process will be when that becomes available. And so this new form will get you used to presenting information in the way that you'll need to do these types of GEC substitutions when they go online. So I'm Doug Masterson. I'm the Associate Provost for Institutional Effectiveness, and let's go ahead and get started. Okay, you can see the new form here in Adobe Reader. So I'm going to just show you this in Adobe Reader. This was built as a completely fillable form with some rules built into it so that you can't check multiple things incorrectly. And so if you look at the form just really quickly, you'll see that the layout is quite nice, and we have a variety of things in the justification section that are different than what you have seen before. This was an attempt to try to minimize the amount of writing that you all have to do for fairly routine GEC substitution. So it allows you to check some of the more common things that we see here at the university, which allows you then to submit your forms a lot faster. So let's just start by seeing an example here. And let's say I'm an advisor and I've got a student named Bill Kowalski. So I'd type in his name. I would give his employee ID number or student ID. Turns out that Bill has a very easy to remember student ID number. It's 123456. Bill is actually located on the Gulf Park campus, so I'm going to select the Gulf Park campus. And Bill is a student in the College of Arts and Sciences, so a nice drop-down box so that we're getting the college name directly from that. And he's actually in the School of Mathematics and Natural Sciences, so I'll just scroll down to that. I will select the school that Bill happens to be a student in. His degree plan is he's a chemistry major, ACS certified, BS degree. He has no minor, so I'm going to leave that blank. His catalog year was 2015-2016. He has not applied for graduation yet, so I will leave that checked as no. Had he decided to apply for graduation at this point, of course, we would have had to check yes, but he hasn't applied for that yet, so we'll make sure that that's checked at no. And Bill is coming to us with a aesthetics course that he wants to substitute for our GEC 04. So the category that's required for Bill, of course, is GEC 04. That's the aesthetic values. And the course that is the most similar to the one that he's transferring in would be our Art 130 course. And the USM course prefix and number on the DPR, that field is actually the prefix and number for the course he's transferring in as it appears on the DPR. So as I'm sitting here looking at his DPR, I see that this transferred in as Art 701 AAA. And the title on the DPR is TFR Art Elective. Okay, so that's how it's in on the DPR. So that information would allow me as Associate Provost to go in and look on the DPR and know exactly which course you're talking about. So we've got all of this information now set. So now we can come down to the justification section, and it turns out that this there's two areas. There's A and there's B. So A is for a transfer course from an accredited institution, and B is for a course taken for a student while at USM. The vast majority of our requests should be type A requests. So this was a transfer course from an accredited institution. The institution that Bill went to was Northeastern Oklahoma A&M College. And the transfer institution's course was Art 101. and the course title was Art in Society. And so it turns out that Bill was a transfer student, and so we can select category 1. Okay, so the student is a transfer student who took the course prior to enrollment at USM. So he took this course prior to coming to USM. And now I've selected 1. You can see now that if I come down here, I've got a yes and no question. Does the course satisfy an equivalent GEC category at the transfer institution? And it turns out that it did. So the answer here is going to be yes. And so what I need to do now is attach documentation from the transfer institution verifying that the course is part of the transfer institution's GEC. What I will need to do now down here in the explanation area, you'll see that we have 2 boxes. We have one on requiring you to explain equivalency and one requiring you to explain the rationale. In this particular case, we do not need to explain the rationale because the rationale is already marked here. The student is a transfer student who took the class prior to enrollment at USM. That's the rationale. So we don't need to complete this section for this particular question. However, I still need to provide an equivalency. And the equivalency has to do with the GEC categories here. And so what I would say something like here is that NEO A&M College has an, whoops, if I can spell correctly, equivalent GEC section titled Art. They have an art requirement for all of their students, and this is equivalent to USM aesthetic values. Please see attached documentation. And that's all I have to do. So now the student's information has been entered. I've provided an equivalency that lets me know, actually, that there are equivalent GEC categories between the 2 institutions. I would come down now to the approvals. Now I'm going to come over and mark whether or not the substitution is supported. Of course, I'm filling it out for him, and so I'm supporting this. Notice there's a difference here between this form and the last form. This form, the only approval or denial is at the provost level. However, everything else is just, do you support the substitution, yes or no? So it will go through and get everybody's signatures, they'll date it, and it will be routed as shown here. So it starts with the advisor, goes to the school director, the college dean, and then ultimately to my office here in the provost office. You would then select print form, and it would print this form out on your printer, and you would attach the supporting documentation and move it on its way. Now let's look at another situation. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to come up here and I'm going to reset the justification. Resetting the justification will blank out the justification fields, or the check boxes anyway, but not the information that I've entered in here, so that's kind of handy. So we've just reset the situation. Now let's suppose that Bill actually wasn't a transfer student. He was a native student that went home to take this class and wanted to transfer it back. How would that situation be different than the previous situation we just looked at? Well, again, this is a transfer course from an accredited institution. There's the information for the course that's being requested to be transferred in. But now the student is not a transfer student and or took the class after being enrolled at USM. So turns out Bill's not a transfer student. He started here as a freshman and then decided to take the course one summer before or during his time here at USM after he had enrolled and started here. So I'm going to select 2, and I'm just going to select that. And you'll see here that it tells me that I'm going to need to attach documentation supporting the equivalency. to the required USM GEC course. I'm going to need to attach the approved permission to transfer credit form, and I'm going to need to provide an explanation for the equivalency and rationale for the substitution in the boxes below. And so in this case, I'm going to have to provide an equivalency because he took this course elsewhere, and maybe it didn't satisfy the a similar GEC situation. So I'm going to go with that type of an example. So the equivalency explanation here, I've come up with this. So the Art 101 course is a survey of how art has influenced global society since 1900. Oops. The attached syllabus describes So there's the equivalency. So I'm explaining how the course, excuse me, is fairly equivalent to what we have, although obviously it's not the same. And then the rationale, excuse me, I need to provide a rationale here because this course did not satisfy a similar GEC category at the institution where they're bringing it in. He just went and took the course during the summer, got permission to do that beforehand, excuse me again, and is bringing that back now and wanting to get it subbed. So the rationale here was that the student needed to go home for the summer, and he wanted to stay on track to graduate. The student received prior permission. See attached form, which would be the permission to transfer credit form. Okay. And taking this course during the summer allowed the student to take an additional degree requirement So there's the rationale. The student needed to go home for the summer and wanted to stay on track to graduate. The student received prior permission. Taking the course allowed the student to take an additional degree requirement course in the fall that was a prerequisite to a course required or only taught in the spring semester. So basically this is showing that having taken this route, the student is going to be able to complete that spring course on time and help them get to their goal of graduation at the specified date that they wanted to do. So this is the new form that we have. We will start accepting only this form in the fall. You will be able to find this form on our Student Success website. So you'd go to the Student Success website, look under the instructors and professor area over there on the left-hand side, and then look under forms, and you'll be able to locate this form there. And so please start using this form as soon as you have to start doing GEC substitutions this fall semester. And thank you very much.